sitting sick of this isolation, suffocation, accusations of annihilation across every nation, illegal association, self-righteous indignation, but time proves it's just self-flagellation. And I've got hope, but not much optimism.
Okay, we are back in the Roman Anton Podcast studio with our guest, Rory Breaker-Morant. Did I say that correctly?
Yeah.
Because I might be a little older than you, or a lot older than you, but Breaker-Morant had some history for me. I remember it in the movies, and I remember it was a foreign movie for me, right? It came in through the foreign film channels.
I think it was made it at Cannes or something like that was where it got. The one with David Bowie and Brian Brown. You mean that one?
No. It was Breaker-Morant was about the Australian War.
Yeah. But I think Bowie was in the film.
Oh, okay. He may have been. He
might have been the lawyer or something.
That's right. Yeah. Good Lord.
So, he was a Australian poet, like the Henry Lawson, Banjo Patterson level of poet, telling stories about like living on the land and being a drover and all this stuff. And then, like a lot of other people got recruited to the Boer War.
Right.
He and one of his best mates got killed by a gang of Boers who, were in disguise as civilians. So he asked if he could like go and do a revenge mission. And at that time, the Australian Army was basically the British Army. It wasn't really the Australian Army. So the British High Command or whatever said, yep, go ahead, do the mission. And unfortunately, in the mission, some civilians actually got killed. Right. So this got back to London, basically, or back to the rest of the Western world. And so he was shot and he was executed as a scapegoat for this thing. And the British denied all responsibility. And his last words were famously, "Shoot straight, you bastards."
Huh.
Yeah, so he's a bit of a legend in Australia.
Renegade at least.
And then Rory Breaker, I don't know if you've seen Lock, Stock and Two Smoking Barrels.
Oh, you're right now. Here we go. Okay.
So Rory Breaker was the afro-wearing, drug-dealing psycho dude. So I wanted to put those two things together because I thought that was kind of cool.
I'm sorry to start with that, but I felt like it had to be asked for.
Good to get it out of the way, I think.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Well, I apologize for that. So, Rory Breaker-Morant, there you go. So we got the explanation. It was interesting for me because I see that name around town a lot on the billboards or on my Instagram. I've started following you a while back, pre-COVID, and so I have the pre-COVID idea of you, which one show had a bunch of folks jumping up and down to one of your songs, and then we all had to do COVID stuff, and seemed like it was a lot of solo you or you in isolated spots, and now we're sort of back in the game. So it's been interesting to watch what you're doing. But I reached out to you to say, hey, can I want a DJ to stop by, and you said, well, yeah, okay, there's a little more to it than that. And so I've spent a little time trying to shape up what you're doing, but it was interesting because every screen flip or turn there was a different medium I was looking at, and so I had to pause and reflect on how this is all put together. So I wanted you to maybe help me walk through some of this. So where are you from? Are you from Australia? Or are you from?
Yeah, from Melbourne.
Okay.
Yep.
And you grew up there? Or?
Yep.
Yeah.
I spent all of my life there until I moved here 15 years ago.
Oh, okay.
16 years ago, maybe.
15 years ago.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to point mine a little more at me. I think if you back away, I'm going to hear you a little less. So you get right on it. That's good.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. Sorry. I mean, up to you.
No, that's all right.
You got to get your good shot, though. I'm sure you get your handsome mug in there.
Sideways.
There we go. Right.
I'll work it out.
Yeah. Sorry. Thanks. 15 years ago. That's getting a long time now, huh?
Yeah. So I met my wife, who's Thai, in Sydney. We got married there, and when I moved from Melbourne to Sydney, I spent 3 years in Sydney. When I moved from Melbourne to Sydney, someone asked me when I was going to come back to Melbourne, and first time I'd thought about it, but I thought, no, I feel this is a step to moving overseas. You know, like Melbourne is a fantastic city. There's just about everything there that you could want in very good quality, and it's an amazing place to live. but I definitely got the sense that I wanted to live somewhere that wasn't great in those ways.
Yeah.
You know, the more challenging in one way or another, but just different, you know. When I was a teenager, it was pretty popular for my adult friends, or, you know, my 18, 19-year-old left high school friends to go on these things called Kon-Tiki tours.
Kon-Tiki tours, okay.
You heard about them?
I know Thor Heyerdahl went at the Kon-Tiki.
Like a bus tour through Europe kind of thing.
Okay.
And they'd advertise it like 22 countries in 24 days and this sort of thing. And they'd come back and be like, oh, yeah, I went to this many countries. I said, oh, what was this one like? They're like, I don't know. I barely got out of the bus, you know. And I'm like, what the fuck would you do? What a waste of time and energy, you know. So I'd made a decision that if I was going to go somewhere, I really wanted to go there and stay there, you know, like and find out what it was like to live there, not just pop in for a week and then leave again, you know. Yeah.
So what was life in Melbourne like before you did the Sydney trip? I mean, were you a student, a musician? Were you dancing? Were you?
Yeah, a bit of all of those. I started playing in bands when I was in high school,
Nice.
and then went on doing that in university. Studied at university, started working at quite a famous pub in Melbourne called the Esplanade, which a lot of bands came through. And so then that went on to party years. There was a few party years as the electronic music scene hit the world, including Australia. And also during those years was when Melbourne was getting voted the most livable city in the world.
Yeah.
So it was an amazing place to live at that time. It was our party season went for about 6 months.
Summer?
Yeah, from Spring Carnival for the racing all the way through to Easter.
So that's sort of September to
April.
Yeah.
It was it was exhausting.
Yeah. Well, it's just those are different months than North America. So for folks listening, that would be.
Yes, that's right. Yes.
Yeah.
So the summer months, and we'd have like numerous summers of love all through like for nearly a decade. It was a really amazing time. Really cool. But like all good things, it eventually gets stale you can only do something like that for so long. Which is when I started to think about going when I moved to Sydney, and then was really seriously thinking about moving overseas.
What was the music, the high school music thing? Were you were in a band? Were you singing? Were you up front? Were you playing a guitar?
Yeah, singing and playing guitar. And this was I guess 1990 to 92. I graduated in 92. So it was the first, like it was like the Pixies and those leaks of like college alternative, which became grunge, which became everything else that we know it of.
Yeah, very cool period of time then. I wasn't trying to out you or get a date or something, but I was just trying to frame this as a high school period. No, and I'm sure you don't, but it was cool. I mean, that's, the influences. Had you put that a decade earlier, it would have been the Bee Gees and the Grateful Dead or something.
Possibly, yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So late 80s, early 90s was the real influences.
And were you, how were you receiving the music of that era? Were you a messenger of it, or were you resisting it, or was your message aligned with the grunge scene I think you'd mentioned, or whatever it was converting into?
Sure. Look, I can remember first hearing the Violent Femmes was the first entry into that alternate college style music world.
Interesting.
Which back then everything was alternative, right? If it wasn't Guns N' Roses, it was alternative sort of thing. So I remember hearing the Violent Femmes and being like, wow, I don't even know why this is great, but this is fucking great.
What song do you remember?
The whole of the first album, basically. I mean, it's Blister in the Sun is the top one, but it's like the whole album was a game changer. I was so stripped back and basic, and yet so full of exactly what guys at that age think.
Yeah.
So I remember being introduced to them, and then like Sex Pistols and the Ramones and the Clash, and the Damned, and that 70s punk scene there. Leading into Dead Kennedys and stuff in the 80s, and then Suicidal Tendencies and that skate rock stuff from the 80s and everything. And then like bands like Mudhoney and Soundgarden, which had made a bit of a splash, or at least raised their heads before the likes of Nirvana or Pearl Jam or anything. So hearing about them and just this basic gradual arc of like, you'd read NME or you'd read Melody Maker, you'd read an interview with an artist you liked. Like, for me, Black Francis, I was fascinated by what music that guy was into. And then you'd go and find it. Yeah. And you'd go and, oh, yeah, that's pretty cool, or I can see the influences. Like, bands like the Melvins and that, that I only found out about because of Nirvana. Yeah. So it was this just step-by-step, deeper and deeper entry into this world, of which the world seemed to be, if you want to do it, do it. Yeah. Give a fuck if anyone thinks it's good or not.
Yeah, that is, I don't know what you call it, the feeling, the zeitgeist, whatever. But there was that, go charge the hill, right? Sort of Breaker-Morant style.
Something like that, yeah.
You used the word when you described him, a trover?
A drover with a D, yeah. He's like a cowboy.
Okay,
yeah.
That's an excellent word.
They're called drovers because they drive cows.
Yeah, it made sense to me, but I didn't want to expose myself. But I had to know. I wanted to know if you were a drover or not at the time.
No, but I have worked on a dairy farm for a few months. Yeah, it was cool. I got caught in a stampede.
Well, it's interesting. I have no claims to fame, and I have no basis to make this next comment, but I grew up very closely with the Violent Femmes, and when I was in Wisconsin, they were playing on the streets there, and so we were dealing with them, and I remember Gone Daddy Gone, or I think that's the name of the song, Gone Daddy Gone. Yep. There was a xylophone solo on the album when it came out, so we were all sort of shocked, but when they played it live, it was, pen, slide guitar, or whatever he's doing, but... when Brian Ritchie was playing the bass, being a Paul McCartney fan, I was like, yes, this is the lead bass.
Right.
Love this.
Yeah.
And they had me at hello on that stuff when I first saw him.
Oh, sure. That first album was just... and he wrote it when he was someone was 14 years old. Right? It's just so nice. Pity I didn't really follow it after that when they made a bit of a change. But yeah, that first album, it's still... every generation gets it from their older brother or sister.
Yeah.
Still happens today.
Yeah, but you describe a process that some know and some don't. Is sort of, Melbourne being as popular and as central as it was, it still had to get music sent to it. Mm-hmm. It wasn't showing up by the internet or other fashions, and so, part of natural selection squeezes out a lot of stuff on its way to Melbourne, just like where I was, I think, in the Midwest. So I wonder how much of this stuff came in through channels that were radio-driven, that their forces of disruption had set about saying, this is what's going to go out to you guys?
Actually, in Melbourne has a very healthy alternative radio scene. There's two key players, 3RRR and 3PBS, and particularly in those days, pre-internet, there were go-to shows. Like the first time I ever heard, I heard 6 tracks off Nevermind about 2 weeks before it was released here. On a show called Reel to Reel, where this guy was just scouring the world, and he's like, okay, everyone, get your cassette players ready, get ready to hit record, because this is going to fucking blow your mind.
And that was it, though? You had to know it in advance, or you caught it at the time?
Well, you had to follow the people who knew it in advance. Also, we had, so we didn't have MTV so prevalent in Australia. We had an MTV, but it was just kind of crap, really. But we had this show called Rage, which was like an overnight Friday, so it started like 11 o'clock on a Friday evening or 10 o'clock or whatever. And it was just music videos, just music video after music video. No one talking between it, just showing the music. Right? And that was where you would find a lot of stuff, like from about 1 a.m. till 4:35 a.m. on a Saturday morning. They'd just be playing this out there alternative stuff, like stuff that wasn't getting played on commercial radio, wasn't getting any time on something like MTV or whatever. But was still getting made. Some indie band making some crappy video, and then it just somehow managing to get into the hands of someone.
Aussie bands or worldwide?
Oh, worldwide. Yeah, worldwide. That's where we got. It's the first time I ever heard Smashing Pumpkins was on this show. Rhinoceros. Yeah, I'm like, damn, what is this?
3 in the morning.
Oh yeah. It's 14 years old. Just,
right. Yeah.
Yeah, so that was where a lot of it came from. Like healthy alternative radio stations. Really diverse, like from blues to techno, sort of diverse, and the overnight music video shows.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? I mean, but for those,
yeah. Well, we didn't really have college radio, So I worked on a university radio for a while, but I think you're getting like 50 listeners or something at the most.
Yeah.
So the network really was these alternate radio stations, and a lot of word of mouth too.
Right, for sure. And posters.
I love posters.
NME, right?
Oh yeah, I love posters.
God, I used to love getting the music magazines, guitar, whatever I was picking up. I tried to pick them up.
Yeah. That was our window into the world, actually, especially Melody Maker and NME. That whole Manchester scene and the British explosion and all that, like that all came to us through that media.
Yeah, and I guess the Commonwealth pushed stuff within the Commonwealth, so you were a willing recipient of a lot of that stuff, I'd imagine, but the magazines came, so NME to me was imported and had all these other nuances to it, and we had the American magazines, so, I was a Beatles fan, so I sort of by default found the magazines that were coming out of the UK. But it's just interesting, one country over, and maybe you're not getting the same magazines that kids your age are getting.
Sure. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. It's that time was really interesting. As there were literally markets, and markets in terms of geographic markets.
Right.
Getting access to some stuff, not getting access to other stuff. Things being created in that market, not getting to other markets too.
Yeah, I hate to be cynical about it that we were sort of products of the marketing machinery, but on some level that had to be the case. But I think if you were curious enough and you stayed up till 4 a.m, you found your niche. It's funny you haven't thrown anything else, and maybe it's because of the way I answered the question, but it sounds like it was musically driven at that point for you, and you weren't going to the poetry workshops or the part of the festival you were at that had spoken word. You weren't running to go find that. You were looking for the rock stage.
Yeah, it was all music, definitely.
Yeah. Definitely. How did Elvis Costello or any of those voices get through to you, or was that?
Oh, hell yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, we that was growing up on the late 70s and definitely 80s, that sort of thing. Yeah, we knew Elvis Costello was.
Yeah.
We knew the thing that I remember as well, especially in high school, there was like whatever was going on locally, and then whatever was happening big in the US, whether that be like R&B or Guns N' Roses style or Poison or whatever.
Yeah.
But then there was also all these reunion gigs or revival gigs from all the guys from the 50s and 60s. Like I remember Roy Orbison was charting again, and the Traveling Wilburys and stuff. And what I think is interesting is now we're seeing that with the bands that I grew up in the 90s. We're 30 years later.
Who, for example?
Oh, so a lot of local ones. I mean, Foo Fighters is probably at the top of it, but they never stop, right? So it's a bit different.
To the side.
But yeah, in Australia, there's been this massive '90s revival that actually happened through during COVID, probably as much as a coping mechanism as the fact that everybody grew up a bit. But bands like UMI, I think Powderfinger, I don't know, just a lot of local bands that went out really on a high.
Midnight Oil or
the Oils, I'm not sure. I think I wouldn't be surprised if they made a singular appearance or something like that, but like they're a little bit longer in the tooth than these guys, and Peter Garrett's a politician now.
Men at Work or Def Leppard?
Men at Work I heard did a reunion, Def Leppard are from
what did I just do? Who did I just insult?
No, just Def Leppard are funny. So that would have been Def Leppard would have been in a time when I was running off to Nirvana and going, nope, Def Leppard,
of course.
Poison, no Nirvana.
But what a live show, right?
Oh, one-arm drummer,
100,000 person audiences.
Yeah, that was a crazy time.
All singing into pouring some sugar on me. I mean, just madness, right? But I mean, you'd see these shows and it was just like a well orchestrated bout of chaos every night
in spandex.
Yeah. Just guys were king of the world.
Yeah, it was an interesting time.
20 top 10 hits, I bet, right? Just
you can't knock them, definitely.
I mean, and so they're floating around all these other guys, and your bands are probably opening for them. That the ones you really like are gonna. I'm opening for Def Leppard.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I'll come through.
Right, playing the Coliseum or whatever. Interesting. So, I mean, the flow is on. So you're in. Melbourne, are you a student, or are you blowing off classes, or are you getting by, or what's your attitude to the man?
Bit of both. Bit of both. So I studied comparative sociology and cinema at university.
Nice.
So but I mean, I missed as many classes as I went to. But no, it was okay.
Good intentions though.
Yeah, it sort of bled out from that into the working in the hospitality industry thing and being around music and all that. Yeah.
Okay. And so that was all in Melbourne.
Mm-hmm.
And then you said Sydney.
Yeah, I just felt like I just felt like I needed to see a little bit more of the world, and I think I came across a job up there. Actually, it was that's right. One of my best friends was up there working at Fox Studios on Star Wars 3.
Star Wars 3.
Yeah.
Frank, help me. What's Star Wars 3 about?
Revenge of the Sith.
Revenge of the Sith.
When Anakin becomes Darth Vader.
Ah. Yeah. So is that Ewan McGregor at that point?
Ewan McGregor is Obi-Wan. Yep.
Yeah. Interesting. Is that the one where they fall in the sand hole with the big weird thing?
That's Return of the Jedi.
Okay, sorry. That's the one image I've left with. All right.
So my friend was up there. So it was a few things that came together to maybe just think, fuck it, I'll go check out Sydney for a bit. I'd only been there twice. I never lived there or anything. So see what's up.
And so Western Australia, Perth.
I've actually never been to Perth.
Yeah, okay.
It's embarrassing actually. There's a lot.
No,
It's a big ass country, but there's a lot of the country that I should have seen that I haven't yet.
Yeah, I mean that's comparatively. Yeah, I guess you could bucket it in several things, and Houston or Dallas. A lot of people in the States haven't been there, right? So it's a big place.
Yeah, it's a big
Things
place.
didn't drive you there.
Yeah.
Did you travel region at all before you left, or Tasmania or New Zealand? Or?
I was conceived in Tasmania.
There you go.
But again, I can't. I think I might have gone back once when I was a toddler. But look, honestly, I just I didn't. I travel a lot in Victoria. So we'd drive. I'd spend a lot of time in the country in Victoria, or Melbourne's built like around two bays, basically, Port Phillip Bay and Western Port Bay. So I'd spend a lot of time down the peninsula. It's beautiful down there. Randomly swimming with dolphins and shit, like kangaroos hopping through the campsite at dusk, and it's a really nice part of the world. But I didn't. I've been all up and down the east coast.
Yeah,
but never really made it past Adelaide in terms of heading west.
Yeah. Is that so? Let's back up to the Tasmania thing. Born there and then smuggled out in the dark of night?
No, conceived there.
Okay.
Yeah, not born there. I was born in Melbourne.
Okay.
I just happened to be conceived there.
So you got Tasmanian blood in you or something?
Well, that could be insulting in Australia
I don't
because
know.
we say they have two heads and shit. But no, it's
okay. Do you have two heads?
no. Actually, it's another beautiful part of the world.
Yeah.
It's like a small New Zealand.
Yeah.
The mountainous landscapes, lakes, cool weather, just natural environment up there. It's a beautiful, beautiful place.
I think we have a topographical or map biased view, because if my worldview is the United States in the middle of the map and the wall that I'm looking at, and it's that round shape of it, then Tasmania seems to be disproportionately large as an entity when sitting next to Australia, and then the bottom of the ice caps, right, look like hats or shoes.
Yeah, I mean, well, I guess it depends on which map you're looking at.
Right, the one I have is an American map, right?
Yeah,
so
right.
We're in the middle.
and bigger than everywhere else. And yeah, actually, I've been seeing some interesting things about that recently.
Yeah.
What an impact that has on.
Of course.
Yeah.
The Chinese never put up with it. They're like, here's how ours looks, and you guys aren't even on it.
Yeah, exactly. So, if you look at an accurate map, Tasmania looks like it really does slot in quite nicely in the bottom there. Yeah.
Bottom half of that's cold though, right? I mean, you're starting to get to the end of the world there.
It's super. We get that same cold in Melbourne. The winds blow up off the Antarctic, straight up into Port Phillip Bay and straight into Melbourne. The wind chill is pretty intense there, actually. Yeah, but certainly the bottom part of Tasmania is basically probably seeing icebergs.
Yeah, and did that cold winter shape your thinking at all about where you want to be?
Maybe not so much my thinking, but it certainly shaped the city that I was living in, which shaped my thinking.
Yeah.
So one of the comparisons between Sydney and Melbourne, I kind of like to think of Sydney as the blonde with the big tits, and Melbourne as the brunette with a little bit of more culture and substance.
Okay.
And one of the reasons that I believe that those sort of scenes develop differently. Sydney's really temperate most of the year. It gets a bit cold sometimes, but it's pretty temperate generally. It doesn't really get too stinking hot, and it doesn't get too freezing cold. Melbourne, we have a week of 45 degrees at least in summer every year, and we also can get to 0 degrees through winter, and it's wet and everything. So over the years, the indoor culture developed more stronger in Melbourne than in Sydney, which included the art scene and the performance culture and live bands and theatre and all that stuff. So that's why Melbourne has ended up being the cultural, in terms of that sort of culture anyway, art culture, the cultural hub of Australia.
Would you throw that theory down at the rest of the world? Would you, if we dissected that backwards, would you say it applies to New York versus Miami versus San Diego?
Of course it does. The first thing that affects anything is the climate, right? The natural environment and the climate, even our language.
And so better art scene in New York than Florida?
Well, depending on what kind of art you're into. But
okay.
that idea, I think it is true. I think there's other factors, but the weather or the climate, I should say, plays a role.
I'm not trying to be a dick. I'm just curious. Hearing how you break that down is interesting. Yeah, go for it. Don't worry about it. Hearing how you break that down is interesting. And for you personally, provoked a move. Let me go check out that hotter spot. Let me go check the new spot out, and it proves to be closer to where you're at now, right?
Yeah, that was interesting. I mean, I still think I prefer Melbourne over Sydney still, but Sydney is not without its charms, and I'm glad. I think one reason why, even unconsciously, I wanted to do that move, certainly retrospectively, I know that it was helpful, was learning that when you move to a new city, or even a new country, but certainly a new city, the first thing you got to do is stop looking for the things that you missed from the old city.
Right.
Because that'll blind you to all the cool shit in the new city, because you'll be wasting all your time trying to where do I get a good coffee? Or why isn't your bakery better? Or why the fuck do you not know how to do fish and chips? Or things like this.
Where's your guacamole?
Yeah, this sort of thing, right? Whereas, and so that's the first step. And so I learnt that because I fought it for maybe 6 months in Sydney before I kind of had a bit of an epiphany. And that certainly helped me when I came here to just be so just absorbing all of the new stuff rather than still want to find a good coffee, but yeah,
right, yeah. I mean, I guess I'm probably if there's a scale to measure what you just described as a not as a pathology, but as a reaction spectrum, I would say that I'll hold on and try and replicate, right? Which, it cuts out a lot of stuff, but I still am pretty low on the heat scale here. So when I eat hot food, I sort of struggle still.
Yeah, same.
Yeah.
I mean, chili, I like the flavor, but it's kind of like that guest that doesn't leave the party.
Yeah.
I mean,
just hangs around.
Yeah, it just hangs around even when you're trying to just have a quiet soup before you go to sleep.
Yeah, well, and I'm repeating these things out loud because it's interesting to sort of hear your breakdown as you're, moving out of high school. Is it a private school or public school, or are there no such things?
Private school. Yep.
And so you're breaking the shackles of whatever enterprise you were in and sort of listening to some music and picking a stronger course in the music direction than a weaker course, something that had a little bit of a leading edge. And then you say, I'm gonna commit myself to school in a particular fashion, and then you go up to Sydney or over to Sydney. Meet a mate working on Star Wars, and you're in the big city now. And are you carrying a pocket of book of poetry at this point yet, or are you
still no?
Yeah.
I used to enjoy writing letters. I really did. Like when I was away from anybody anywhere, I really used to enjoy the art of writing a letter.
How would you do it? Talk to me about it. Would you go out and buy paper? Would you ask the restaurant owner, could I get a pen or paper? Or
a little bit of both. I probably, I can remember writing some quite long letters. So it would be that moment of taking an hour or two to just have a conversation with someone that's not there in the future, when they received the letter. But I'd written I'd actually by that stage, by the time I got to Sydney, I'd written a novella. Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
There we go.
Yeah, like a 60,000 word novella. Never did anything with it, but I was happy that I did it.
You still have it?
Yeah, I think I got it on a disc somewhere. On a disc. Yeah, I've got it somewhere.
Yeah, you do have it on a disc for sure.
But yeah, I'm sure there's a copy floating around somewhere.
Yeah.
Again, it was like what came subsequently with the poetry is it was a process of catharsis to get the ideas or the experiences or the feelings or whatever out of here and just get them out, get them down somewhere so that I could move on from them or have that.
When did that start? That
I would have started that in 97, maybe 98.
Sort of the breakthrough. I'm putting stuff down on paper now, and
yeah. Look, again, not even that. Just really, I need to get it out, and this seems like the way to do it. Yeah.
So none of it was musically. You didn't write "Pour Some Sugar on Me," and that wasn't the training you were following.
That wasn't the kind of catharsis I was looking for.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. I actually by that stage I was probably playing a lot less music. Still really dedicated to music, but from moving around and different job roles and meeting new people in Sydney, whatever. Just at that time I wasn't playing so much music. Yeah.
Were you taking the stage though?
No, actually, to be honest, no. To be honest, there was definitely a few years there where I wasn't taking the stage. I played a couple of years leading up to that. I played with a band for a little while, like when I worked on the dairy farm that I was telling you about. So I was up country there and found myself just working on a dairy farm randomly. And I met some of the guys there, and we just put a band together for a few months that I was there. It was really good fun, actually. We wrote some nice songs.
Acoustic stuff with
acoustic and rock. Like it was, some drop D stuff,
Nice.
like that. No, it was the grunge era, you know.
Yeah. Just checking.
But
you're on a farm though. I thought maybe you were like.
Well, we didn't have the
foxes.
internet, but we did have telly. Like, there was even. I think they'd just gotten rid of the telegraph and brought in actual TV.
Nice. In color.
Yeah. So, but by the time I was in Sydney, it wasn't. It just wasn't my focus at all, to be honest. I felt like Sydney was just a holding space, really. Like waiting for something that I knew was supposed to happen, but not quite sure how to make it happen.
And did it happen?
Oh, here I am.
Yeah. So you met someone, or was it a combination of a skill set you developed with the catharsis, and then you met someone, or all the above?
No. So at that time in Sydney, I started my own business. E-marketing business, so making websites, email newsletters, CSS, search engine optimization, all that stuff. And I'd set up my own business with that. So when I met my wife, I think we'd known each other about 18 months before I moved here. So I had this business that I could, because it was all online, I could just transport with it.
That wasn't a ready-made concept, though. You were still an early adopter to that model, right?
I guess so. Yeah, sure. It was certainly. Yeah, I mean, I guess so. That's probably why I got so much work, because there were the gap between knowing nothing and knowing just enough to be able to do it was huge. Actually,
and you were out there, and so you were the most knowledgeable guy on campus.
Yeah, and once you can do one thing, they ask you to do everything as well. So, and it was lucky in those days. It was certainly they were more simple and more difficult at the same time.
Yeah. So regardless of the financial success of that model, you're back sort of in the game, making things for other people. Fair? Is that a fair summary of?
In terms of that business?
Yeah,
that's exactly what it is. So being able to apply apply for what someone else's vision.
And were you liking that, or was this a sidetrack?
No, I think I can say I didn't mind it. Yeah. I mean, by the time I got here, I was working. I mean, had everything really set up. Like so many templates for the monthly things that I had to do. I had templates for it, and I put the work in when I was in Sydney. So by the time I got here, I think the best that I did, I probably worked about 10 hours a month, and was getting
paid
a lot of certainly enough money to be saving money, and
Good.
Yeah. So. So it just worked out that way for a little bit, and then
and I'm not being critical of.
It was. I appreciate the experience, to be honest.
Yeah, the work product, but it's just getting something you can move with is even now still a modern concept, right? Like, and then doing it is even you're starting to get into a minority position, and then doing it here, then it's still. Millions have done it maybe over the history of man, but not a lot every year, right? So you're picking a path as you go forward that's more and more not isolated, but there's fewer people walking it.
Yeah, I always find the picking a path thing interesting. Don't you? I feel that...
I don't think you pick paths. I think if your daemon takes you somewhere, if I believe your long text writings, or demon, or however we say it.
Damon is correct.
I thought it was Damon Albarn, so it just shows you how superficial I am.
Well, Damon Albarn, I'm not really happy for him to take me somewhere one day. That'd be nice.
We'll give him a call after the show. So he's free.
Yeah.
Right, and so inside joke, I've read your stuff. Other folks can when they look at your Instagram. But okay, so you get married and you marry a Thai woman, I assume from our discussion, and you decided to come here right away, or was it wait a while?
We ended up waiting about, I guess, maybe 10 months or something after we got married. The reason being that I needed that year to solidify the business that I was going to bring here. She wanted me to come straight away. I said, look, there's no way I'm coming there without a source of income already. Give me this year to solidify everything, get everything locked away. And then I arrived here New Year's, 1 o'clock New Year's morning on 2007, January 1st. 2007.
Okay. January 1. Frank remembers stuff like that.
Well, I remember it as well because when we got in the cab, the taxi driver said, have you heard 15 bombs have just gone off all around Bangkok. So that was the New Year's morning.
Was that for
the
real?
New Year's bonnet. Yeah, it was legit. Like something like, I can't actually remember the figures. It could have been 35 people died.
Okay.
It could have been 74 or something. But But it was for the insurgents from the south, and they planted like 12 or 13 bombs around Bangkok. So it did sort of stick in my mind.
Yeah, it's easy to remember.
Yeah.
So welcome to town.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's a shocker. And so did you move to Bangkok first, or did you?
We moved to my wife's condo. She owns a condo.
Oh, nice.
So, straight in there. Yep.
So are you still there?
Yep.
Okay. Can I ask neighborhood?
Sarton sort of area,
Okay.
between Sarton and Klong Toey, I guess.
Yeah, good.
Yenagard, actually, you know. Yenagard.
Yeah, right. You had a show there recently, or the
workshop thing?
Yeah,
Art dinner? Yeah.
Yeah.
Doing a few of those, actually. They're really cool. At Workshop on Yenagard, the restaurant there.
Yeah, I think if there were an interview too between us and I got to see some of those shows, I'd have a whole different series of questions, because it's hard to get the scope of those watching Instagram.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah,
So I'm not being critical of Instagram, but as much as people can post, and now that I know your genesis, I would have thought there would have been much more of this, so I give you credit for some restraint. It's beautiful what you've posted, but you can tell I'm looking at a fairly large room here, and I'm just getting this camera angle, and so I imagine if there's a big audience, which it's hard to tell, and these people are as quiet and as responsive as they are to some of these, I thought, okay, so this is a real interactive performance art session, because I can sort of feel the bodies on the screen all over the room, right?
Yeah, immersion. I write the copy for these events as well, and I'm having to come up with all these different versions or ways to say immersion, because the combination of the guest artist's work, and then they'll do a presentation or a talk or whatever, combined with the food that's custom created by the chef, combined with my curated soundscape.
Right.
The idea is bring as many senses into this world as possible, and so you can't get that off a 30-second video or a photograph.
Right, and I don't mean to say you're not doing a good job, and I don't want to jump the gun here, because this to me was sort of the clincher, and then you sent additional material, and I was like, wow, this is some complicated stuff here, and I don't mean complicated in a pejorative sense, or it's too heavy, but I was just saying I'm just getting the tip of the iceberg here. I could sort of see that I should go to these shows. That was the clear conclusion I drew. I was like, I'm going to try and tell this guy I'm an expert on him, and I haven't been to his shows. So let's move up to that. So you get here 2007 January, and Frank, when did you show up? What was the time you showed up? What flight number? What day? And when you first moved here? October 2. What? 2010. What was the flight? So
I don't remember my flight. That's impressive.
I did his podcast, and it was just like, when did we write that song? Oh, that was Thursday. So we have the chronicler. I guess we have the Paul, even though I want to be Paul. You're the Paul. You're going to write down all the good dates if we ever have a legacy that gets captured. But so there you go. So we know that date. You're coming in. Excited, scared. I'm going to step over 1 second. I'm going to repoint the gun. I'm going to go.
Okay.
Did I hit you in the chin? I apologize.
There. There. Is that better?
I hope that's the only time I ever say did I hit you in the chin. So I apologize.
Yeah. You and me both, actually.
Right. There we go.
Excited. I was stoked. I couldn't wait to live in another country, and especially I was determined to live in a country that was not a native English-speaking country, a completely different culture. If I hadn't have met my wife, I think I would have ended up in China, actually, as my first port of call. I was determined not to go and live in London or a culture and an environment that was sort of quite similar to where I'd come from.
Yeah, I asked and answered that question in my head on one of your early responses. You said then I moved to Thailand, and I realized he wasn't going to do the Kon-Tiki tour, and he wasn't even going to pick a country on the Kon-Tiki tour. Yeah. And it wasn't just to be different, but I'm sensing he'll get there, and he'll do the reveal. But China, at that point in time was still Wild West, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And now it's clearly not. Now it's leading the way in a lot of things, and it has some wildness. But okay, so you're here and you're stoked. How many bags are you carrying? Backpack?
No. I came, brought a fair bit of stuff.
Okay.
I guess. I knew I was moving here. I knew I was going to be here for a minute, for more than a year. I think I brought everything that I could. Probably a couple of bags.
Any gear? guitars?
I did not bring. No, I didn't bring any guitars. I left my bass at home, my guitar at home, my clarinet at home.
Mom and dad's home, or who's home?
Yeah, my mum and dad's.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, so I don't know what that tells me. I'd assume I could draw all sorts of theories about that, but showing up, knowing where you are now and showing up without a guitar, but making sure your business is intact, is you were going to make sure you had some dough rolling in here, and then pursue whatever the artistic pieces that were going to happen, if indeed they happened, right?
If indeed they did. I mean, I didn't know, I knew nothing about any creative scene here at all. I would see it, to be honest, I moved here, that sort of stuff was pretty far from my mind at that time. I moved here to be a blank canvas, blank canvas is a way to put it. As open a mind as I could possibly have, absorb as much of this foreignness as I possibly could, and how can I say, change like as much as was appropriate or necessary. I think that we're changing all the time, right? And that some difficult times are the times when we're changing more dramatically, maybe. But we don't know we're changing until after we've changed. We look back and go, that's what was going on, But I was the same. I didn't know how I needed to change, but I certainly knew that if I'd only lived in one culture, that I'm sure there were some things that could have probably been improved, And that's what I was looking for.
Yeah. I mean, you brought up Star Wars, so, my protagonist is who in this story? Rory Luke or Rory Obi-Wan or Rory Darth? And so I'm sitting here thinking, does he come here to want to not be the man at a job, at a work function, and climb a corporate ladder? Is he forcing that step to happen to him with this move, or is he in the obvious quest for an artistic outlet or not? And at this point, I'm still saying I'm not hearing enough from you on either side. But the word you picked was change. So you hit the road to take a chance, huh?
I changed my environment so that I would have to. I knew that there would be situations that would force me to not only have to learn new things or whatever, but also through that process reshape myself as well.
Huh? Could you have become a titan of industry in that change?
No, I don't think I've got that kind of work ethic to that kind of thing. To be a titan of industry, you've got to be a cunt to people sometimes, and I don't have. I try my best not to do that.
Yeah, I'm sorry for laughing.
I did get. I mean, about a year after I'd been here, I'd made a bunch of friends. But the first guy that I met here in the first month that I was here, he took me to a barbecue one day, and I was having a conversation with someone. What are you doing here? What do you do? Blah blah blah. So I told him this e-marketing stuff, and the next week I was invited to a meeting with their entire senior management team, the CEO. It was a global insurance company. And by the time I got home from that meeting, I had an email saying, "Can you please come and work full time for us?"
Here we go. This is what I'm getting at.
Yeah. So I did. I don't want to. I mean, I don't even need to dwell. Or there's not that much interesting about that corporate part. But I was doing it for about 6 years. And at the end of it, I was a senior branding and marketing manager for this international advertising insurance company. But that experience also made me realize that I am not cut out for the corporate world.
Were you a boss, or were you?
I was senior. Like the only people above me had C in their title. But also, I mean, senior. But I was working regionally as well as in Thailand, and working with the head offices in Paris and in Germany. And
were you always straight with them and doing the work, or were you off in the golf course 3 days a week?
No, I burnt out. That's why I left.
Okay.
Like it was an unforgiving environment.
Yeah. Because you made it unforgiving, or because it was by definition?
It's probably a bit of column A and column B. Like, we all have, one thing we have control over is our reaction to other people's things. And even in that world, you can make decisions that can mitigate certain things.
Like, I'm not doing it on Thursday, I'll get it on Monday.
Or, that kind of thing. Or even, we might work together, but let's not pretend that we're really close friends or family, because when money comes down to it, you'll do what you have to do.
Yeah. Okay, so I get it. And I'm not trying to say there's one thing or the other, but I'm just curious if
Yeah, no, it was
So that
always
magnet
a
pulled you
column A,
in,
column
right?
B. Yeah. Actually, no. It was a snowballing thing. I started when he first offered me full time. I said, no, look, I've got other things. I've got other responsibilities. I can't. So I worked as a sort of consultant for them for a few months until he just, broke me eventually and said, look, you'll get this and this and this and this.
And so I'm gathering it was easy for you to travel the Saturn area to your job. It was somewhere near there.
Job was in Petchaburi, but
Okay, yeah, a little further away.
some days easy, some days not.
Okay.
If it's
Okay.
not raining, the train.
Yeah. Okay, so you're doing that, and then you're coming into the 2010s to 2020 time period, and you've got probably some savings and comfort being here, and you're learning the language a little bit, or you know what your food stops are, you know where your cup of coffee is, all those things.
Yep.
Yeah, and so you have this novella in your drawer, or that's a disc, or maybe on your hard drive of your computer that you transferred over from 7 different softwares. Is the poetry lurking, or is
There was some poetry in that, actually, yeah.
Yeah.
There's a couple in there that weren't too bad, actually. I thought I've read them recently, and a lot of it I read and cringe.
Why not?
As you should, maybe,
Yeah.
If I met myself back then, I'd definitely cringe.
For sure.
But as well, there was a couple of poems in there that I thought, actually, that's not so bad. That's kind of nice. But that was a thing in the past, and it served a purpose in the past. I think I've maybe read one of those poems once here in Bangkok.
Oh, okay.
And I noticed it just didn't go down as well as the other poems that I've done. So that's a good thing, It means at least I've matured and maybe improved. But so you mentioned the 2010. So actually, 2020. So, excuse me. 2013, I left that job and left in a burnout. Seriously, it was panic attack type shit, And so, just for mental and physical health, had to leave. And took at least a year. No, it took a bit less than a year just wondering what it was I was going to do. Because I knew I couldn't go back to that.
Here in Bangkok?
Yeah. Just I did some just odd things like for friends' businesses and whatnot. But really tried to take a considerable amount of time to just work out, okay, like what's going on? Who am I? Like even recovering from the experience that I had in the corporate world. And through that process, I heard about an open mic, a poetry open mic. So this is where the story starts.
Okay.
In terms of now. So I heard about this spoken word poetry open mic called Bangkok Lyrical Lunacy, which was down at the Overground on Soi 22. Did you?
Boy, that's my neighborhood too. My old neighborhood. The Overground, Soi 22.
Close.
Oh, right. Okay, towards the back.
Up towards Sukhumvit Road, but off of just a small soy just before Sukhumvit Road.
Right.
And so that was run by a guy named Graham Lynch, who was a great supporter of like independent art, all different types of art. He had comedy there, he had spoken word poetry there, he had all different types of bands. I DJ'd there sometimes. But it was a great start. We were also lucky because at that time there was this core group of very, very talented spoken word poets. And so this community sort of coalesced around them and the event and provided just a context for the sort of standards that you could go for. I think that's certainly what I felt from it. So I went along to this open mic and I did 2 events. Yeah, I did the 2 events like once a month that they had. And at the end of the second one, the organizer, whose name is Pablo, asked me he said, "Oh, you're DJ, right?" And I said, "Yeah, I've been doing a little bit of DJing." I hadn't really DJ'd much for about 10 years and then started back then at that time. And he's like, "Oh, could you come and DJ for the show?" And so after that, I spent 2 years, or maybe even, let's say 14, 15, probably about 2 years just listening to poets. I'd get asked occasionally, Rory, when are you going to get on stage? When are you going to do a poem? And I'm like, at that time, I saw myself as like the Paul Schaefer to Pablo's Letterman.
Right.
So my job was to be there, maybe make some comment, maybe not or whatever, but basically provide music for the poets to walk up and walk off, music in the breaks. And I was very determined that was the character that I was going to put out there. Also, if I do admit, the DJ booth is a comfort zone. If you don't want to talk to anyone, you don't have to talk to anyone, you know. And there was times when that suited me quite a bit as well.
Yeah.
So I spent the better part of 2 years just absorbing great poetry, some average poetry, but also the power of vulnerability and connection through spoken word poetry. And just became enamored by it, but also saw it as like it was going to be a necessary tool for me to, like I said, to process the experiences that I'd had in the years leading up to leaving the corporate world, or and that what led me to leave the corporate world. So that was the start of the poetry path.
Yeah. So let's go back to this DJ thing. So for those 6-month periods of time, you gave them a name down in Melbourne and in Sydney, summer solstice, or maybe I made that up.
Summer of Love.
Summer, okay. The multiply recurring summers of love, plural. Were you DJing at those? Huh. So this is just a separate skill you...
Yeah, I DJ'd once in Melbourne, like publicly once on the 1200s. I had... it was the first gig. It was at a friend's birthday party. I'd mixed 2 tracks. First time I'd ever played. I was super excited, and they were all friends around and everything, so it was going to be cool. And then this arm comes over and grabs the stylus and across the record, and I look up and it's my friend, and he's like, just say, really, really high, and like stressing out because people were destroying the house that we were in. And he's like, your friends are doing this. And I said, dude, it's your brother. Your brother's high as fuck on amphetamines, and him and his mates are going around kicking doors in and shit.
Okay.
And then I just basically, he's like, well, everyone's got to go. So that was the only time I ever DJ'd in Melbourne.
Nice.
But then I
so 2 turntables and a microphone, not on the Apple yet.
not even close. Yeah, all vinyl, $20 a record, all that stuff.
Right. So you're lugging it around, and it's
Well, I never got the chance to because that was the only time I DJ'd. And I think
what was spinning?
Shit, I can't. I think it was
Creak, and so it's big scratching it.
Yeah,
now.
I can't remember.
Still at your parents' house with your other gear, right?
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
You go sell those for $1 zillion.
Yeah, so
the original Australian copy of blank.
Scratched. So the DJing here didn't start until I had a birthday party. My birthday's in December, so 2009. I had a birthday party up at my condo swimming pool, which is on the roof.
Nice, sounding sort of swanky. This life you're living in Satar.
Oh, it's. I mean, it's very pleasant. Anyway. So I had a friend, or I met a guy here who was from Melbourne, who was a DJ in Melbourne, and he offered to DJ at the party.
Oh, fun!
That was all lovely, and we had got a few people there. And then Australia Day, which is on the 26th of January, and also so these are conveniently located in the dry part of the year. So great time to be having outdoor parties. And so we said, let's do another one for Australia Day. And that party, I think we got 200 people or something, and we had a full sound system and lasers and all this stuff, and it was huge and really good party. Yeah, on the rooftop. Yeah. 20-inch subs.
Your second try.
2 20-inch subs and 15.
Hey,
15
do these lasers
mid-highs.
burn if they go into someone? I just turn it on.
Just aim it to the river.
Right,
It'll be
over
fine.
there. Don't point it at anyone.
Exactly. So, yeah, that was really successful. But then I think a couple of things got broken up there or something. So we were told we weren't allowed to do them anymore.
Yeah.
So he says, like my friend says, all right, well, we should keep doing these because there's an audience, and that was heaps of fun. So let's find a venue and keep doing these parties once a month. So we did that. We booked in the venue. We met the owner, organizer, got all that locked in. And about 2 weeks out, he says to me, "Oh, so you're going to have to DJ as well because I can't DJ for 6 hours." And I was like, "You pussy!" Like I DJed for 6 hours last weekend, man. It was 20 years ago.
Right.
But he's like, "You're going to have to DJ," and I said, "Well, you're going to have to teach me how to do it because I could basically have never done it before. Certainly not on CDJs or anything. Well, I could say I'd never done it before, to be honest.
Right. What you're being asked to do is to entertain people. So it's like, I got to figure this out.
And so I had about a week and a half to learn how to DJ. But that worked okay. And then that was where I started DJing here. Yeah.
So you have a 2-hour DJ set from above 11.
Online.
Yeah, maybe it's 4. Maybe it's
the whole night is 4, but I think I put up 2 hours. That's right.
Yeah, maybe, and I may be wrong, so don't quote me on that. But so that's a 8-year transmogrification to complete sets online, DJing, and a variety of other appearances and sets that you do. So, so you pick that up and you like it?
DJing?
Yeah.
It's an addiction. Yeah. I could feel it while I was still doing my corporate job. I could feel it pulling me, just the search for music, and the search to put the perfect songs together and put the perfect story together through a bunch of songs. Yeah, it is highly addictive, actually.
Are you now totally online doing this? Have you abandoned your 80s discipline of magazine and vinyl searches for the perfect band and then waiting for the radio show to come on so you could hit the click on your cassette to get 6 Violent Femme songs too?
Sadly, we don't need that now, right? Sadly, there's an algorithm helping out with that. And
was that because of your business? You just got facile and you were all over this stuff and you were buying the latest gear to get better for the work you were doing, and then you did the insurance gig and you're like, I need to stay high end, and 4G is better than 3G is better than 2G, and so you understood the incremental benefit of technology that was happening around you as you were doing this, or was it
with music? Sure. I mean, all those other things you mentioned too, but definitely, the transition to, let's say, from Napster to where we are today, in terms of access of music. In fact, when I really started taking the DJing more seriously and looking for like what was my sound, or what was the music that turned me on that I wanted to play. A lot of that was SoundCloud, and a lot of it was independent producers just banging their stuff up on SoundCloud and just doing some really interesting, cool, unique shit, And so a lot of my early collection was in that direction. This is really before I started playing like hip hop even, and R&B and that. My first real introduction and first sort of direction into a particular sound was through a lot of independent producers from around the world.
Interesting. So you've now brought me to the entranceway to where I don't understand the language anymore. And so if you had said you still had the stack of albums behind you, I may have been able to find this thread and follow the discussion, but you're now looking for stuff online and then housing it somewhere on your laptop.
Basically.
And so is there a known portal for DJ stuff that's good for use on stage? That's something other than iTunes? Is there like DJ Master?
Sure. So Beatport is probably the longest running high end. Well, I say high end, like just the quality, high end WAV files, MP3s, whatever. That's probably the longest running like big portal, and that's where you'll go to find. You could just get all your music from Beatport if you wanted.
And then does Beatport have the tool you play off of, or is it other stuff?
So if I was DJing, if I'm DJing with a laptop, I use Serato.
Serato.
Yep, Serato.
CE or
Serato.
Serato.
Yep. It's actually a bit of software out of New Zealand.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I think it's probably coming up for 20 years old now as well, actually.
Happy anniversary, Serato.
Yeah, something
Shout
like
out.
that. Yep. And then, but if I'm using CDJs, the
round thing.
Yeah, well, that's all. They're all round.
Yeah, they're this big though. I don't know what they are. I thought that was where you made your tostadas or your
no, that's just I think you're talking about a platter. Yeah. So anyway, doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Like I can also these days. So when I'm playing at above 11, or actually most places I play now, I can just take a USB stick, plug that in, and then use the software in the CDJs or in the mixer or whatever to do that. Yeah.
Huh. And so, do you have a booth or your setup somewhere at home, or is this just so portable now you can do it on a plane and it's the same dynamic?
I do have I have a setup. I think my controller is coming up for 10 years old, maybe 8 years old. But sometimes I still have to take that with me. When I play at workshop, I'll use that. But it's great now that more and more venues are realizing the importance of having in-house gear for DJs. Like it is a pain in the ass to carry stuff across town.
Yeah, that's where I was going with it. Is I think when Frank and I play up, most of the venues we have a core set of stuff that's going to be there, and we're still carrying a lot. Yeah, we're still on the far side of easy.
Yeah. So my especially the last 5 years, one of my goals is to be streamline all that so that I can literally just carry like a pair of headphones and my USB, and I'm happy.
Right. Yeah. Take the motorcycle with the backpack, and you feel like you're.
The heaviest thing in my backpack is beer rather than
like it was fine when I crashed, but I landed on my 12-pack.
Yeah.
I broke my back.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, interesting. So, I watched something the other day, and I'm not even sure why I'm bringing this up, but I watched Woodstock #3, and why that was such a strange event with the fires and the things in the third night. And there was this segment with Fatboy Slim, who I know is a DJ only through 2 of his songs, and he was getting ready to go on stage, and he actually ends up leaving the show. 250,000 people, and that's my impression of the DJ world now. Is they get these events that are supernaturally huge for these big events that they have.
Yeah.
And some of these guys seem to show up carrying a backpack. I'm like, wow, like how affordable is that to a promoter, right?
Oh, sure. It's been the digital part is a game changer, not only because of portability and you can even if they're not using vinyl. I mean, you can even use vinyl, but just use one record with the software.
Right.
So rather than having to swap records, it's called a control vinyl. It talks to the software through the stylus and cables, and all your music is still on the laptop.
Crazy.
So it's different in the sense that you can turn up with a laptop full of music and absolutely change direction from what you planned without having to go, oh shit, I left all that collection of records back at home because I thought I was going to play this. Yeah. So that's a game changer. And just almost literally access to any song.
Yeah.
Whereas previously, one of the DJ things was you've got access to records that nobody else has.
Right. That's what we were talking about.
So that's all changed.
Your homework helped, right?
Yeah. Now it's fortunately, it's either what you can do with the turntables, like if you're a turntablist, or how cleverly you put together the story of the songs.
Right, and I'm sure there's some whole narrative about who's better and how you can look down at one set of people versus the other. But
what's better in art,
Right. So that's where we'll leave that.
Concept.
So you have something I just listened to, and I wrote so small here. I feel like I was trying to cheat in an exam. Not Good Day to Die. I don't think it was Good Day to Die.
With the band?
No, it was a video you had. Blame It on the Moon? Blame It on the Moon. Starts off with a drum track.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So that's a cover. That's not mine. I'd love to take credit for that song.
I was going to say the key change in that is, or the chorus movement to the major is awesome, and I thought this guy was going to be dark here and go dark. So that's not.
Yeah, no, I'd love to take credit. Yeah,
is that your version?
That's my version. Yeah, but
so the drum track is from your laptop, or is it a machine you have?
No, from the laptop. I just, I guess I made that I knocked that up in COVID during COVID. So I think I was.
You did the keyboards on the laptop?
Yeah, the whole thing. I mean, that's a demo.
So no instruments.
No, I didn't even have the bass at that time. Right. So no live instruments, all MIDI, or I think the drum loop is just a drum loop.
Yeah. Sounds great.
I enjoyed playing with the harmonies on that one. But I said, it's a very, very beautiful song.
Well, I just played it for these guys. This guy's awesome. Listen to this melody. And I said, wait, he goes positive here. So there you go. Gave someone else credit. So screw him. Forget about that. Horrible song. Well, that was interesting. So, I mean, that to me, I thought, I don't know anything about DJing. I don't know anything about the conversion from DJing to songwriting. I don't know, when David Guetta, if you say his name that way, because he says he writes on his jet when he flies from Paris to Ibiza. And on the laptop, I'm like, wow, I mean, who can beat that, right? I got to get the guys together on Tuesday night to play the songs. I'm going to wait for...
We can do that, definitely.
Right, hope everyone's sober or shows up or, just like, all right, but he's doing it on the plane. And I thought, well, it sounds like Rory's found that outlet.
Certainly. I mean, like I think I mentioned, use Ableton to put together my to make my music, and it is a little bit like being a wizard. You can have an idea, like whatever the sound is that you've got pops into your head, and there's a chance you'll be able to find something that can come close to that. Put that into Ableton and just start building the song from it. And it's you can have all the music I've produced, aside from when I've had guest vocalists, everything else I've made myself. Like on If We Did It All Again, probably there's a few things I like about that, but one of them is that every single note on there was created by me, and I like that song. I think it's a nice song.
Yeah, well, and the saying it that way too, it's yours, right? Yeah. Interesting. Yeah, I mean this was, in addition to looking at your relatively infrequent postings, or frequent, I don't know what to call them. I'm not going to be judgmental as to what's normal on the internet. That was, and I reached out because I did catch that Above 11 package, and then I heard that song I was talking about, and I thought, oh, okay, original songs. And then I saw, I'm going to assume it's Bad, Mad, Sad. I'm going to assume it's alphabetical. Am I right? Bad, Mad, Sad?
No, Bad, Sad, Mad.
Ah, you bastard.
I know. Look, you're not the only one. And honestly, I mean, the sentiment is still the same. I just...
I did write it down right, though.
I put Mad at the end because...
I didn't want to look down.
Yeah, no, that's okay. That's okay. I mean, there's a whole bunch of tonal stuff going on there,
Well, I've seen you do it with a guy behind you playing wah guitar, and I've seen you do it on stage sitting down with the full band, which is the Dianas.
Dianas.
Yeah, right. And so I've seen you in various settings, and then I've seen you do it a cappella or alone or solo or whatever you call that.
Mm-hmm.
And so I sort of like that. I haven't heard, maybe I have, maybe there's a DJ'd version. Maybe you have one that's...
Well, I've never really thought about that. I mean, like you mentioned, I've got, I guess, 3 different versions of that that I've done. The one on the rooftop when I originally wrote it, with the music that I've made, with the Dianas, which is another different version. And the spoken word version, the a cappella spoken word version. So, I hadn't ever thought of putting that one to my own music outside of what I did in the pandemic.
Yeah, and I wasn't bringing it up as a criticism or as an idea, but it was. I thought, wow, because yesterday I had a gentleman named Tom Crowley who was in addition to being a writer, is a Vietnam War veteran from the United States. And he and I had a lot of synergies in terms of how we write stuff or prepare stuff or do stuff. And so I was able to read his books. I have one on the floor here next to me that he gave me yesterday that I'm going to try and finish today. That book right there, Mercy's Heroes, is one of his from working at the Mercy Center, which is over by your house, or closer to here than your house. And I was able to go through his body of work through 3-dimensional hard copies. And as I tried to assemble yours, I could find 3 different versions of a spoken word piece. One sounded very musical and the other was spoken word. And I thought, I guess this is what it's like chasing super modern artists around, because in particular ones that have several skill sets, some of which are visual ticket sales where you got to show up to see the event. I thought, you maybe you don't get to track down your modern artists and capture them in the corner anymore if they're doing performance shows that their number one goal is to satisfy a live audience or satisfy themselves and have a live audience there to, right? And I thought, okay, I mean, it may be you have to find these people and leave the podcast studio and go see their work. But it was really, as with everything, a self-critical analysis as I'm trying to understand you as, wow, there are people who do things differently than you. And in order to meet them and explore their work, you're going to have to go out and see it. And that's great if they're in town. And even if they're not in town, you can go check it out. But I thought, that sort of brings us back to where we were. I mean, when we were younger, how many times did you get to see your favorite bands live? Once a year if they were doing a major tour. And if they're really hot, second time through. Luckily, which meant none of our groups we got to see.
Yeah. I mean, again, luckily, at those times, when I was really young, a lot of my favorite bands were in Australia. So I was getting to see a lot of that cool live music. We had a really strong underage scene there. We called it all ages scene. So it'd be in a pub, but there'd be no alcohol sales, that sort of thing. And these things were just crazy. Like, I remember being in a little pub seeing a band called the Hard-Ons. Oh, excellent. And they were awesome. They've reformed as well. They've come back together.
I was going to say
there had to be something there, right? Yeah. So seeing them, and it was so hot in the room that it was raining with sweat. So I felt this dripping on my head. I'm like, what? We're inside. Looked up and drops of, it was like rain, but it was all
like a bat cave.
Imagine even contemplating that today after like a thing like the pandemic. People would be like, "That's so unhygienic." Yeah.
Well, and even just like, yeah, right, exactly.
15-year-old, you don't give a fuck. You're just out there seeing some awesome music.
Yeah, and we didn't have that. There was maybe the pretend that there was liberty like that in the States, but there wasn't for 15-year-old kids. I mean, you were sneaking in somewhere, you were jumping a fence, or you were showing up with a hot dog jacket on and pretending like you're selling stuff or something. But it was cheating, right? It was illegal.
Well, I do think this all ages scene, again, was lucky timing for me. Pretty much started to come up and solidify around the time when I needed it, when I was 14, 15 years old. So, and it still exists today because it's actually really profitable for everybody involved.
Yeah, the bracelet and the stuff.
And just kids that age, they're like really happy to be able to go out and see live music. See a band. They don't take it for granted, and they're not having to get drunk before they do it. And it's a really healthy, energetic environment. Really safe mosh, things like that, like a really safe mosh pit. Or at least it was back then. So, I like the comparison that you're making. Like we've come as taking back almost to that where you have to physically make some sort of physical commitment in order to consume the art.
Yeah, well, I'm trying to figure that out because I wanted to. My initial reaction to you was going to be I'm a dude, so like, can I beat him in his sport, or what is, how does this work, right? Real healthy attitude, right? But I thought, okay, just what's going on here, and it's back to 3-dimensional, and I thought, okay, I mean, whatever else is going on, his venue is now at this place now post-COVID, but your lyrics during COVID and Bad Sad Mad was in part my understanding of the section of the poem that I thought, or the written piece, was directed at COVID. True or false?
Well, yeah, I think honestly the whole thing is
right. Okay, so
it's a story about, or it starts off as a story about like when I say we wave to each other across the rooftops.
Right.
It's literally my life every day. My wife and I would go up to the roof at sunset. I'd take a couple of beers up there. We'd watch the sunset, and we'd wave to all the other people who were doing the same thing or similar on their rooftops along our condo. And we actually connected with people that I might have walked past 100 times, but we'd never said hello to each other. And during that time, you just give a wave and say like, "I see you." Yep, we're in lockdown as well. Hope everything you okay? Yeah, we're okay. And so that whole poem, which was written, I guess, in April 2020, was, I mean, nearly all of my poems are conversation with myself, but I hope that the content, subject matter that I explore, which is emotions above layers, like I try to explore stuff that is before race or gender or sex or age or any of these other things that we find ourselves compartmentalized into. It's about things like, everyone under any of those categories probably will fall in love and probably will fall out of love. Yeah. Probably at some point in their life have some regret. At some point they possibly are going to feel like an imposter. At some point they're going to be really, really angry with someone. At some point they're going to be probably depressed if you look at statistics around the world at the moment. So I feel that all these, or I hope that all these topics are in their own way individually universal. Yeah. And so if I am honest with myself and I embrace, if I embrace vulnerability as a strength, particularly in terms of connection and sharing, and then I write honestly, and then I just make sure that it's not too specific to me so that people can still understand it, then that's my job as a poet, I see. Well, that's how I see my job as a poet. And Bad Sad Mad is probably one of the most successful manifestations of that, I think.
Yeah, right. And so my reaction to hearing it the first time was, I'll use this term I've learned over here, is he's whinging, and I was like, he's complaining, and complaining's pejorative. I was like, he's complaining. And, you just use this word, embrace vulnerability, because I've thought, I try not to complain in songs. I'm not going to complain in songs. Like, I hate the president, or, something obvious. It's not, maybe I'm saying that, but I may say it differently or not. But I thought, okay, so I listened to it again, and then I listened to the various versions, and I thought, well, I mean, he's writing topically about COVID, and I thought, this isn't complaining. This is just talking about how he's feeling in a fairly rapid fire way in the video, and it just it was a new. I turned on expecting a DJ, and I got a spoken word artist. So that was sort of the experience. I was like, huh. And as I went through the rest of the catalog, I thought, wow, these pieces are so connected. What you're doing. So what you're doing in the art room, and is there a dance sequence of things? I can't piece it together, Ned. Is there? You have a sort of interactive dance thing with your muse, the woman you mentioned, the
Japanese one. Or
yeah,
the
yeah.
one with the red. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm not trying to put you on the spot.
No.
It's hard for me to even follow. Like, wow, what the hell is the next show this guy's going to do be about? Because it could paint himself and deep down on the boat at the biggest dance scene we've got outside right now, right? And I thought that's a whole different thing you have to satisfy if you're on that stage there, right?
So I look at it. I'm not really a dancer myself, and as I get older, the older I get, I mean, I can kind of have fun with it, but I realized that the show with the Japanese girl, we didn't have very long to prepare, and I'm not a trained dancer, so what we did try to do was probably about as much as I could do. And after that experience, like, I'm very grateful I got to have that experience within that show. But it also showed me, like, okay, if I'm going to write a show, I want dancers who are much, much better than me to do that sort of expression. I've still got plans. So the first time I ever did a poem blindfolded, which was the first time I ever did a poem as part of a contemporary performance. Like I said, I was blindfolded doing this. It's about a 10-minute poem. It's a long poem. I'm blindfolded and being lifted up in the air and manipulated and spun around and moved around the room and everything like this. This was have you ever been to Saturn 11 Art Space?
I haven't been anywhere. I've been in the garage.
I haven't been anywhere yet. So anyway, they've got this cool sort of secondary space outside the gallery or beside the gallery. So I was getting moved all around there, completely disorientated.
Was it outside?
Indoor, outdoor. So there's flow from the outdoors, but it's it's roof.
Because there's some of that video online, right? You're wearing the white painted suit.
No, that's a different one.
Oh, okay.
This one I'm talking about was the first blindfold experience. I can't even remember exactly why I wanted to do a blindfold. Right. I just thought, fuck it, it's contemporary art. I can. I turn up to an open mic and go, hey everyone, I'm going to do a blindfold. They'd be like,
Rory,
fuck is this dude?
Hi.
Yeah. So I think it was mostly I just thought, why not? I've got the opportunity. It's contemporary. I can pretty much do whatever you want with that stuff. So I did it, and the reason it was a game changer was because I was both had a sensory deprived, and also extremely disorientated by the movement. So not really deciding, but I found it was the most immersive I'd ever been in performing a poem.
How are you miking it?
Oh, the room is small enough,
so
and my voice is my voice is strong enough that I can cover the room. Miking would have been hard considering I was getting flipped around.
I'm sorry to be
around.
No.
That's No. It's true. It's an issue that we face, particularly if we're trying to record, right? Anyway, so I found that it was the most immersive experience I'd had, and my entire perspective with the poem changed. So it went from sort of memorizing word by word, line by line type thing, and having to really think, what's the next line, or what, just be concentrating on what's coming up, to the first thing I saw was like, oh shit, this poem has 3 parts. It has a beginning, a middle, and an end. There's an arc to what I'm talking about. I do world building at the start, where I talk about, in this particular one, I talk about the world can be a kind of a shitty place, and to thrive and survive, it takes effort, and part of that thriving survival is failure and rejection and these sort of things, And so I had this epiphany while I was doing the poem. I'm not even really thinking about the lines, because in Act 1, Part 1, I know what I'm saying, what I have to say. I know where I'm trying to get the audience to. In Act 2, I know what I'm trying to get them to transition to. And in Act 3, I know how I want them to feel when they leave the poem. Suddenly everything changed. And I had another sort of realization that it's the same with a song, actually, because of the emotion and energy you put into performing a song. But it's a bit more subtle to realize it with a poem. That when you memorize words, so in my case, the poem in this case, it's like you eat it, right? And it becomes a part of you. It becomes in your system, in your DNA, in your whole being. And once it's a part of you like that, you can go exploring different paths from A to Z. You know, like if a poem is a map, let's say a poem's like Middle Earth.
Yeah.
You're starting at the Shire and you got to get to Mordor. once you've eaten the poem, right? Once the poem is a part of you, you can choose choose many different paths to get from A to Z. So you can go to the desert, through the mountains, whatever, and those changes are how you perform nuanced elements differently.
It's so funny you say that. I mean, I'm very glad you said that. Those are excellent comments. So I'm sitting here thinking how it applies to me, which is my natural state. I can't just let it be yours. So, but you know, Frank has 2 songs that we cover. One which I can't play like he plays his song, so I play the guitar during the band piece because he's playing the bass. About 2 months ago, he said, "Oh, we played Milk Toast Rock Style tonight." He just said it on stage, looking down as I'm standing next to him on stage, and I said, "Yeah, that's because I finally learned it after 4 years of playing it with you." And I'm sorry if I screwed it up, but I never told him, sorry, dude. But I finally had it. And memorizing it is one thing, but having it. And I think there's something important about repetition in performance.
Sure.
I think there's something, awesome about the awesomeness of youth exploding as well, like winning the Olympics, and we'd never seen him with a world record time before, and somehow that's just sheer physical dominance in that moment. But it's also training, right? There's reps behind it.
Yeah, everything. Right.
Right. Awesome. And so I can't imagine taking a 3-dimensional standing resting pose and now having your feet above your head and trying to do minute 6, never having done it before like that live, right? Unless you know it.
Yeah. Unless
you own it.
Yeah.
Right.
But I think that doing it that way with your feet above your head is the way you know if you really know it.
Right. And then if you mean it.
Yeah, and also
pour some sugar on me upside down is pour some sugar on me upside down.
Yeah. But it reveals, again, I mean, it's outside of, it reveals itself. Another thing I got was that I'd written the poem and I'd memorized it, so clearly I'm intimate with it, right? But yet I still learnt stuff about myself by having this, almost being able to take a step further back from the words and look more about what's the story I'm telling with these words. Right. And it was incredibly transformative. It changed a lot of my approach to all of the subsequent poems that I did.
Yeah, so there you go. I mean, so you're becoming a professional or something. You're becoming seasoned.
Yes, certainly.
You're coming in control.
Yeah, it's becoming purposeful in more than just the way of wanting to finish it and show it to someone.
Right, to do your gig.
This is why to do the gig, but the gigs are to connect.
Right. You're right. Not to finish. They're to connect.
The greatest compliment I've ever received from poetry, especially, right? Poetry, and maybe it lends itself to this. I don't know. But the greatest compliment I think a poet can receive is "Thank you. I really needed to hear that."
Okay, I'm with you on that. Yeah, right.
For whatever reason, whether or not it just made me happy, whether it made me cry, whether it made me connected, or whatever it might be. Thank you, I needed to hear that, or I really needed to hear that, is the best compliment I've ever received.
Okay, so are you a poet?
I think so now, yeah.
Are you a web designer dude anymore?
No.
Insurance rep?
No.
C-level?
No, really.
I only take my chauffeur-driven car. None of that. Okay, well, all right, so maybe you are. So Mayak Jabin, your rap song with your friend MC Sunti.
Jagin.
Okay, so
I don't want to eat. It's Mayak Jagin Kong Lua Kun is I don't want to eat your leftovers.
I don't want to eat your leftovers, Wrath. Is that what he was saying? He's our Thai expert. He's busy editing his own videos.
Clearly.
Okay, so I mean, is that poetry? Your bits? Because I think you're in English for most of it, right?
Yeah, except for the first
Chorus,
two lines and the chorus. Yeah. I believe so. I mean, I think rapping is a form of poetry. Definitely. I tend to spend. I feel as time goes on, and maybe as my beard gets more grey as well, I feel more comfortable with spoken word poetry than what we would call rapping. Both because I think I'm better at spoken word poetry than I am at rapping. I know some actual real rappers, and they are incredible. But I find a greater freedom with spoken word poetry as well. Like I can rhyme wherever I want and still make it feel like it's rhyming. Whereas people like Eminem will do that, and a lot of good rappers will do it. But I find the beat like that a little bit more constraining for me exploring those different rhyming schemes.
Yeah, and so okay, I'm with you.
But on my Yakjagin, it's straight up rapping. It's just my Yakjagin Kong Lua Kun Pom Im Lao. I wasn't hungry then. I'm sure as fuck not hungry now. Just AB rapping.
Yeah, and I couldn't. Had I understood that even listening to it the first time, I don't think I could have followed it that fast. It's an upbeat song, right? And the videos the videos does what it does. It distracts the hell out of you too. You guys are jumping around, so it looks pretty cool. Yeah, right. So
those are fun.
Yeah.
Video. It is a fast-paced one, especially hers. I mean, you see how fast she can rap on that one.
Yeah, and so I'm just sort of looking at. I mean, if we really go post 2013, 14, 15 is your departure point from the version that you left Sydney as, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, correct.
That's and correct. You did the thing you came to do, which was change, I think, by your own words. And then you go off on this. Did COVID turn you into one thing other than the other? Do you think that was you went more aggressively towards spoken word?
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. I mean, I can see how, if you were a juggler of flaming objects, it would probably have been a restrictive time period unless you were doing it on the roof.
Exactly, yeah. No, it definitely did. I started to just mess around. Actually, there was two things. I joined a band in, I suppose, around the end of the 2020 first wave here. So it was about July, I guess. Joined a band or sort of hooked up with a guy to start exploring about adding some spoken word poetry to his music. This is what became Dead Diana's.
Okay, and the gentleman is the short hair, is your one you're talking about, who plays the guitar?
Yes, yeah. Paul Wilkinson, his name is. So the band is built around his songs, and then we found a way to include or add spoken word poetry elements to it.
Right. So there's the one example, if you're trying to follow online now, is the Goodbye Wonderland.
Goodbye Wonderland is the one that uses Bad Sad Mad.
Right, right. There's a good video of that, and I was listening to that through a Bluetooth device, so I had the video running somewhere, and I was walking around with the sound, and I thought, is that Rory singing the opening? I said, that's a different voice.
Yeah.
Good singer. There's a
lovely
sort of
voice.
Midnight Oil feel to it. I hate doing that to people, but I thought, wow, that's not Rory singing. But then it quickly moved into your section, and I thought that was a really cool pairing, how you guys did that.
Yeah, that's been, I love it as well. Another really, actually I really like all the songs that we do that with, but there's another song, Good Day to Die, which he wrote about a friend of his who took his own life. And my contribution to that, which is the poem in the middle there, is taken from the eulogy I delivered for my mum when she passed away.
Yeah, I couldn't figure out that transition. That's so interesting. I'm sorry. Well, first of all, I'm sorry to hear that. Secondly, no, that's not come on, it's your mom. That's a sacred document in any context, regardless of how good or bad you delivered it. So interesting now that you say that. I'm sitting here trying to piece it back together in my head. But yeah, this is a sort of bewitched combination, huh?
It was serendipitous, I guess, in a way, if the catalysts can be. But
yeah, for sure.
we, I'd actually already used my poetry piece for another song that I made with, that I, again, collaborated with a couple of others here, called Star Memories. And so I had the structure that could fit with a general 4/4 beat already for this poem. And when he first played me the poem, first played me Good Day to Die,
Yeah.
I said, "Oh, look, I've got this poem that's taken from this, and I feel like the timing, the BPM is probably pretty appropriate, and the rhythm's probably pretty appropriate, and yeah, it slides together. The Good Day to Die feels like, if it was visual, it's like a cold winter's afternoon on a heath in northern England or something.
Yeah, not the steamy nightclub that this video is in on a tight stage,
not
right?
like Speaker Box. No, exactly. So so we felt the poem really also captured that mood, even though the song is speaking to one person, it feels, whereas the poem, because the eulogy, I wrote it like a letter that my mum wrote to everybody, particularly my nieces and nephews were in the front row, and I wanted them to have some, be able to get some understanding of that they can move on and things, and so the combination of those two seemed to fit pretty well together.
Yeah.
But the interesting thing about, because we started this about the band with the impact of the pandemic, so having to do the poems to the same music all the time is a godsend for me personally. Yeah. So even when I perform them without any music,
right,
I've still got this rhythm that I can fuck with a bit. I don't have to stick to it because the music's not there, but it gives me this structure that I feel like it enhances the performance. It gives it it almost feels like more professional, polished version of the performance, because there's a structure that's keeping it in a rhythm that everybody should be able to tap into.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, me sitting here jerking off and trying to add to that is pointless. But I mean, I think it's an important point for me to hear from you, because I think it gives me some context around something, but it also reinforces a point that I couldn't agree with more, which is, reps allow you to do that. And, my guys in particular, when we play and I want to do the whole, 3 hours set, I get the point, some of it's overkill, but if you got the energy and the time and you do the 3 hour set, you're better for it. In particular, when the neighbor next door says it's too loud, could at a nightclub here or something, could you turn it down? And you say, oh, we can play quiet. Let's try it without drums and, someone banging a stick or, I think that variety allows you to sort of stumble into those new things you talk about, right?
So this band started, as I said, because it was still kind of lockdown times. We were
cheating somewhere, right?
Yeah, actually, I mean, I think we were allowed out, but it was curfew or whatever,
Right, but clearly masks off, mics on, sharing mics.
Oh no! Well, so I was going to say, it started in his living room in his condo, and so we by definition had to play quiet, and so one of the things that created was this less is more concept, and if you look at if you look at all the songs in that band, really, 9 times out of 10, every musician, whether it be like Ludo on the drums or on the bass or Paul or the trumpet or whatever, everyone seems to be embracing the sonic value of less is more. How do we make a complete sound rather than someone having to shred to create a certain feeling? And that came about because we had to be quiet, and so the songs were originally cultivated in that really quiet environment.
Right, even though the lyric may say, I'm going to kick your ass, you MF, or something.
Yeah.
Let's talk about some of the named items. So, My Damon Muse, The Art My Tattoo, the Living Canvas, 11 chapters. This moves to performance art by your own declaration, if I read the text you put along with these short videos. And I realized how much I don't like looking at my phone to do stuff. Even of Roman Anton brand or Kingpin. It's too small. And maybe that's all I need to say, but when I looked at the video where the girl was sort of boxing or dancing of yours.
Okay. Where is she? Is she on the roof?
Yeah, long hair.
The redhead.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. Yes. Yeah,
Not boxing. Yeah.
So that's contact improvisation.
Right. And I was like, why am I not? And I looked at it on the whatever these things are, iPads. 13 inches, and I thought, wow, this is a lot better than watching on a phone.
Yeah.
And then obviously the living canvas. So maybe for this part of the conversation, we've left Australia a long time ago. We came here on the night of the bombings to discuss that, and you moved through a job that left you with PTSD, and you came out of it thinking, "My Lord, what have I done?" And you picked up some other crafts along the way, and the DJing thing reared its head, and you started to develop that and get addicted to that at work. And when you came out, you did that, but you took some time, and then you hit this poetry groove, and then a performance poetry groove, and then you met some folks during COVID, and then bam, written, directed, produced, the whole works. Where did this come from? So I'm trying to piece this together, and so we were walking back over, and you said, well, it's interesting what you said about my Instagram not giving you a linear binary story. And I said, yes, that's what I was trying to convey to you, and I wasn't suggesting it should, because
sure.
I don't think you slave over your Instagram every day. And you may spend a lot of time getting the content ready because you know how to do it, so as you have technical expertise in making this stuff look good. So the rap video looked fantastic.
Oh, thank you.
And it was simple, right?
Yeah, the black and white one or the color one?
The color one.
I
mean, you didn't create cartoon figures and doppelgangers and stuff. This was on the roof with you and her doing.
Oh, with Santi, yes. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So I like that.
Yeah, me too. That space is, I've done 3 or 4 videos up there.
It looks like your spot. Yeah.
Yeah, so I've got, conveniently because I don't have to leave home. Everyone
right, there
has
you
to come
go.
to me. I'm a fan of that.
Well, and we'll deny that we confirmed where it was for the purposes of the juristic. So can you tell me a little bit about this performance space then? Or maybe we focus on the 11 chapter?
Sure. Well, actually, there's...
or whichever one you'd like.
The performance stuff really started in Tokyo in 2017.
Huh.
I was, through a fortuitous and quite random meeting of one person, I was introduced to a Thai con dance master and contemporary choreographer and traditional choreographer named Pichek Klong Toey. He was looking for a DJ to join his contemporary art production in Tokyo for the opening of Festival Tokyo in 2017. So aside from high school plays and things, I'd never had any contact, as much as I think I would have loved to, but the paths never took me there with these high-level theatre production stuff, right? And I was just blown. It was like a dream for me. You wake up in the morning, over breakfast, you're thinking about the show. You maybe have breakfast with some of the cast, you're talking about the show. You go and work all day in the studio, rehearsing and perfecting and exploring, working on the show. You go out for dinner afterwards with people from the cast, you talk more about the show. You go to sleep thinking about the show, and it's just that all day, every day. So you're absolutely immersed in a project that's challenging and fulfilling, and that brings together, in this case, 20 dancers, 20 actors, about 15, 20 production crew, sound and lighting, custom stages and everything to this singular goal of the performance of the show. So I really got dropped in the deep end of performance art in that, or contemporary art. So we played to about, 14,000 people or something.
Right.
I produced 2/3 of the music for the 2-hour show.
Huh.
And
2/3 of the DJ music that you were brought to do for the overall show.
Well, originally he brought me in as a DJ. I don't think he knew exactly what the music was going to be, but I took the initiative and was like, I'd already made If We Did It All Again, and I'd been playing around with Ableton a lot, and so I took it upon myself to create the music that I thought should go with the story he was telling. And so I created 2/3. There was a middle third, which was like a party section, and I used other people's music for that.
Was it soundtrack, or were you performing live?
I was using the DJ equipment to play the songs live.
Okay.
So not exactly live like you guys might.
Yeah.
But then, because I've got string sections and horn sections and keys and everything. But playing them live in terms of the interaction with the dancers.
Right.
So, the timing might be different, or this might be different, or whatever. So a combination of DJing and playing those.
That's some pressure.
It was
14,000 people. I mean, you gotta hit your marks, right? Or
you
something.
do, yeah. Especially when there's 40 dancers and actors that are trying to sync up as well. And also another reason why it was a game changer is because we were performing in a park. We had this custom built stage and everything. And all through the rehearsals, the Japanese crew and dancers and everything, they had all been saying, Japanese people are really shy in public, and because there was the opening 15 minutes, we had the dancers were all dressed as different types of monkeys, like these really outlandish, vaguely resembling monkeys type stuff. And they were playing with the audience while they're in their costume and everything. And the Japanese people were saying, we're not sure how Japanese people will react to this.
I see.
They're normally quite shy.
Yeah.
We ended up having to ask them to get off the stage so we could start the show. And during the party scene, a whole bunch of just got up and started partying with the dancers and the actors and everything. So they were not shy at all. And that was a turning point which led on to what I'm now doing now, especially this idea of the audience being one of the participants in the creation of the art.
Yeah.
So when I got back from that, my entire perspective had changed. Everything else got the volume turned down, including DJing. That DJing became a means to an end rather than the reason to do something. And I've started singularly focusing on how I could create my own versions of this.
So how would you describe the transformation in the formal processes then? Are you now sitting down with a pad of paper or a desktop or a notebook or something and capturing in writing like Six Monkeys, interacting with the audience and sort of typing up? Are you doing stuff differently now, or is this just all part of Rory version 4 or 5 with the layering of how you do it and the novella turning into the spoken word, turning into this other stuff in the rap video?
It's so the nature of the shows that I've made myself, my own shows. So the first one was called The Fabric of Memory. Second one, My Damon Muse, and then the third one we move into the series of The Living Canvas. So all of those all start out based in poems or sketches of poems that I've just been making notes of on my phone, actually. My first stop in creativity is the phone.
Notes or typing?
Mostly typing, actually. Okay. It depends. Like I try to go cycling every day, and I'll come back from cycling every time with at least one line that I might have been having to repeat myself to myself for 15 minutes so I don't forget it. Rush home, say, you make a voice note, have a shower, and then come back and whatever. But generally, if I'm taking a moment just to let my mind wander and think about things, I'll just sort of vomit out some notes onto the note app on the phone. And then at a certain point, I'll go back and look and say, okay, that's what I'm really seem to be focusing on now, and start to coalesce that into a poem or into a larger show. So
I get that. I hear that, and that's an answer. I mean, I think that's what I was looking for. Is probably not much different, but maybe the biking, or maybe you're doing it at different times of the day. But you get these ideas, and then they turn into this larger thing. So when we look at the living canvas, and you have an actress with you, and she has lines. Are they lines you've written? So she has to do her version of the memory thing and figuring out how comfortable she is. So there's a rehearsal, and there's
we rehearsed quite extensively for that, actually. I mean, once a week to start with, because timing was and everything. But we did spend a lot of time on it. So in the last Living Canvas, there's only one section that I didn't write. That the actress Tanya, the Russian actress, I asked her if she wanted to write her own poem about her relationship with purpose and how she'd been feeling in the last year and a half, 2 years, and she was down for that. So I'm more than happy for that to be my collaborators to bring that sort of thing. But the rest was it was really the first time that I'd heard my words, specifically crafted words, coming out of someone else's mouth, which was really interesting, actually. Again, because I think I mentioned before, maybe I mentioned when we were out, that nearly 90% of my poems start as they are a conversation with myself.
Right.
And so to hear someone else say those words, but also through rehearsal and through their taking on board the character that I've created for them, that they can take ownership of that emotion that's being expressed. That's something that's very enjoyable. Very, very interesting, actually.
Yeah. So was your tendency to say it to them first so they could hear you say it and hope they copied you, or were you, here it is?
Yeah, the opposite. I wanted to get their version first and then give them, we stepped together towards how much I need them to do it how I do it. So in the Last Living Canvas, the 5th one, about purpose, the end of Act 1, no, the end of Scene 1, I should say, we do we actually do Bad, Sad, Mad, but between 3 people.
Right.
And because I had music with that as well, I had to really say, look, you really have to do it how I do it in this recording, because that's the only way the timing is going to work and how we're going to be able to jump in with each other and everything.
And so are they all of a sudden, oh, he's just being a director dick now?
Luckily, I don't work with those kind of people.
Right, but I could see them saying it's so much easier this way if you were just listening to us. I mean, there's, like, I think, while you're talking, I'm sitting here thinking about the 5 trillion interviews I've read of Pete Townsend, where he talks about writing Behind Blue Eyes, Won't Get Fooled Again, and having Roger Daltrey sing them. So this is The Who. This is a band from still around, awesome, who wrote many hits, epic. And the guy who wrote them was the primary songwriter, and the primary singer sang them. And I can't imagine what that was like for him, because when you listen to the primary songwriter's versions, they're awesome, the way he sings them, and you think, man, and then you've got this other version of this super, super strong voice.
I think with actors, or what I've found working with actors, they are looking to be directed as to who is this character.
Yeah.
Now, I always try to get them to bring themselves to it. Again, the content of my shows is they should be able to bring a version of it. I think everybody's had a time when they could think, what's my purpose? Or am I fulfilling my purpose? Or am I purposeless? Or whatever. So it's a combination of the two. They'll bring their own version, and let's say I'm lucky maybe 7 times out of 10. I mean, sorry, I've been lucky who I work with. At least 7 times out of 10 will be, wow, that's awesome. Yeah, that's exactly. It's not how I would do it, but that is awesome because it's you doing it. And then the other couple of times, I just have to say, actually, maybe the rhythm is important here, or the rhyme, you need to try to pronounce it how I pronounce it, because that's how it rhymes. If you pronounce it with your Russian accent in that way, it's not going to work in the same way. Or if we're bouncing the lines back and forth, yes, there's a necessary element of rhythm there in order to make it look like or sound like a duet poem type.
Yeah. That's interesting. I mean, this is such an interesting progression to hear from you. I mean, it's not live, but it's recent, and you're still in it, right? And you're doing these. You'll be on your 3rd or 4th or 5th or 6th, but
6th is coming up,
right? And so you're in its beginning, hopefully, or of a long run of things. But you're developing your craft around this, while other crafts have developed in the process. And it's interesting because you'd say, hey, it's dangerous, Rory, trying a 2nd and 3rd act. You usually get one good solid run at something, and, you did yours at the insurance company. You're going to learn a new craft. And, the whole thing is sort of, what? That's the whole thing I didn't fall for early on. So, but these are new endeavors.
I feel like I've arrived where I had different decisions being made, or different, if some things had been different when I was younger, I may have ended up in this similar, obviously different, but similar kind of context much earlier. But I took a long route for various reasons. But this stuff is where my skills are.
Yeah, right.
This stuff is what fulfills me, and most importantly, when I do a good job at this stuff, other people can be at least happy. And at best, their lives are somehow improved, or it's a positive impact on them. Yeah,
better words than mine. Right. I mean, and I'm sitting here thinking, if it was a long route, it was one that needed these other pieces to come into it, to do this new, perhaps unnamed skill set that we've attached the label to of performance art, or whatever you write.
I think performance poetry is the closest I've come to so far. Yeah.
Right, but clearly when I hear the trumpet coming out, and you could say it harkens back to 20 different generations with their trumpet players accompanying spoken word or not, but in the context of the other things you're putting in here, it's it's out there, right? And there's not a lot of guidebooks
Sure, there's not
on YouTube, right?
There's not a lot of guidebooks, no. But I mean, luckily there are inspirational people. Like Tom Waits is an inspiration for this, particularly the Nighthawks at the Diners type era, that sort of mid 70s, late 70s era.
Sure, yeah.
I mean, that's poet. He even was literally doing spoken word stories in his live shows, accompanying the song. So that's an inspiration, and the beat styles from the 60s, Greenwich Village 50s and 60s is definitely an inspiration.
Yeah.
And then the liberation of hip hop, that final and now first musical genre that is truly international.
Yeah.
First genre, in my knowledge, like if you hear a Thai orchestra playing Bach, it's still Bach, and it's still stuck in a particular time and a particular culture and specificity, right? You hear the Thai Beatles playing the Beatles; they do a great job, but it's still the Thai Beatles playing the Thai Beatles. Right? I mean, they're
and that's what they're shooting for.
Awesome show, man. Those guys are fantastic, but it's still playing the Beatles. Whereas Thai hip hop is Thai hip hop.
Right.
It's not the same as American hip hop or Florida hip hop or New York hip hop or Vietnamese hip hop or Indian hip hop, and so it's this liberating storytelling, local knowledge genre that is legitimate in all the manifestations that comes through it. And so I feel that I'm leveraging from that in the fusion of spoken word poetry, sensibilities, music, and movement.
Yeah, and I can't help but think that if your venues are on Yennecart Road or, the audience is even bringing its own variety, right?
Yeah.
So who knows who's in the room, right? It's just going to be such a mix.
Well, from Rama 4 to Chatong Kroong,
right?
It's there's a lot of diversity,
right? And so even the venue selection here puts you out in a very weird topographical climate. It's just like, who are these folks here tonight? I don't recognize this neighborhood.
I mean, I find that it builds community very nicely. These events, you can get a room full of people who are clearly from very different demographics in all respects. But like I said to you before, probably everyone in there has probably fallen in love, fallen out of love, regretted something they've done, felt this way, that way, whatever. And so if you can have a broad demographic all feeling, well, I felt that way, that's a unifier. It's the opposite of being divisive. If we can recognize our similarities on that level, then the differences that we find in each other become like, I want to know what's different about you and me. I want to hear about your stories that can enrich my own understanding of the world, your perspectives on stuff that might be different to mine, that will enrich how wide my eyes can be in terms of seeing the world.
Yeah, I mean, that's the challenge, right? I mean, if there's that openness, then it's good. But, finding that openness somewhere is not always a guarantee.
The Bangkok creative community is a great place for it, because one reason being because there's an expectation that everyone retains quite a bit of their original culture when they contribute. We all have to shave some edges off probably when we move to another culture, and Thailand's certainly no exception, I think. But in the creative community, there's a want. Like I've got songs I collaborated with people from 5 different countries on the one song.
Yeah.
And they all brought their authentic accents and perspectives and ideas about this singular topic that we're talking about. And it's not to say I couldn't have got that in Australia, but here it's hanging off the trees like fruit. It's just right there to be taken.
Well, and your scene has it too.
Yeah,
so
that's right.
It doubles down.
Yeah, it's actually a part. I think it's a core foundation of the scene.
Right.
So it facilitates itself.
Right, because it could be just the Thai rap scene, which would probably be hard to get into alone, or that could be part of what's now come into your scene, which is going to be the mix, right?
Yeah, well, luckily, again, as a DJ, you get to cross those borders a lot. So I've DJed for Thai rappers, I've DJed for Thai dancers and dance battles and ciphers and things. And the non-verbal communication between the music from the DJ and the movement from the dancer, again, that's a real turning point for me, because I could have conversations with people. We couldn't really speak to each other due to the language barrier, but we definitely had a conversation when they were on the dance floor and I was doing the music.
Yeah, that certainly is a challenge in towns around the world to have, all bands welcome, right? It's not, it's just, oh, that's the jazz club, oh, that's the rock club, oh, that's the underground club, that's the headbanger club. So, well, that's interesting. I think I'm gonna stop here now. I mean, you have so much stuff we could individually select out and talk about, but I really felt like as I figured out how to have a discussion today, I've brought us up to date. You've touched on the bases I hate to use baseball metaphors with folks not from the States. We've touched all the topics that I think seem germane or relevant from your Instagram. I know there's, I know I liked reading, expanding, making bigger the logo Damon quotes because they were parts of your poetry. That was cool to read because up to that point I'd only heard those words said, and reading them was a completely different dimension. And at first blush, I liked reading them better the first time than hearing them the first time. And then as I went through them a couple times, I liked hearing them because I was familiar. I sort of knew it was coming. So that's a sort of mirror into how I appreciate things, I guess, visually at first, but then, for hearing it later. So it was really interesting walking through this stuff. And I imagine 2023, assuming all things are going in this direction, is you're going to have some projects coming out, I would guess, right?
Definitely, I definitely hope so. I'll be in Japan in December for doing the music for a production there. So that's focused. I've got to make 12 songs, so that's taking up a bit of this creative time at the moment. But yeah, Living Canvas 6, I definitely have the ideas, and I probably have about a third of the script.
Nice.
But also, like I mentioned before, every show has to be better than the last. So the ideas I've got for some of the scenes are going to require like sound and lighting technicians and a little bit more than I've had before in order to make the vision work for the audience. So yeah, that will be my focus for 2023. I think at least 6 months of that, I'd say.
Wow, that's awesome. That's great. I mean, I'm assuming Japan will be all open and ready for stuff soon.
Actually, they're pretty good now. It's still some restrictions, I think, but they certainly foreigners are able to come.
Good. Yeah. Well, good. Was there anything you wanted to bring up today? Did I miss anything? Any call-outs, shout-outs, venues, brands, endorsements?
No, nobody's paying me shit. So no, I know. Look, I think you covered it all. We covered the music side, the evolution I liked from DJ to making music to the spoken word poetry thing, and certainly, that is the most effective output for me at the moment. I feel that the freedom in spoken word poetry and combining that into theatre. So making a play, but almost I feel like when I write these things, sometimes I'll watch Midsummer Night's Dream, or I'll watch Merchant of Venice, or even I'll watch Shakespeare in Love or something like that, just to get in this rhythm of speaking in that way. So allowing the concepts to be flowed through language which sounds more poetic than it does normal, but then still being able to find the way to still express the ideas and have conversations between characters and things. And I feel like I'm just starting to tap into that really, and the potential of that now. So that's pretty exciting for me.
You're going to need a headpiece on your bike so you can get the sonnet out. So you're not waiting to get off your bike and do your notes.
Yeah, something like that.
Honey, here one comes.
Yeah.
Well, good. Well, listen, man, it's great meeting you. So this is sort of how we do it. Hopefully you'll get a chance to take a look at Roman Anton Podcast. But the second piece, we ask our guest to perform if they have a performance thing in them. And then the third piece is we try to go to a spot in Bangkok that we find relevant to either the person or just to give people a heads up if they're watching this from overseas or somewhere that they want to go see. So our good friend Ikenna Nwankwo is a professional basketball player So Frank and I went on the basketball court with Ike at Chula Longhorn, and he's 7 feet tall, so he showed us his post moves. Right. And there's a good clip of Frank. I think I did better in the post move. Frank thinks he did better, but it looked like Frank was being robbed. He put his hands up. Other folks, Max, we went over to Live Lounge to sit with him at his place. But I suggested to you, since we're here, we could just drive over a couple blocks and jump out and walk down that main stretch of the Klong Toey wet market to see what's going on there and maybe stop and talk there. Mm-hmm. It's a little hot out today. I thought you could have done bad live there, but I think it's too hot. So
we'll see if you can record.
We could do it right here if you want. Would this be a version you want, or is this feeling funny?
Look, I'll sure, I can do it anyway. Yeah.
You want to give it a shot here?
Sure, if you like, yeah.
Well, yeah, headsets on, headset off.
Headset's
you need another
on,
beverage, a refreshing beverage? Or
wet the palate a little bit.
So Frank just left, so we'll wait for him to come.
Do you want me to perform it to you or to the camera?
I'd say we could turn the lights out. We could do it interact. I could punch you in the stomach, if not that I want to. That somehow seemed overly aggressive. It really wasn't what I was feeling, but we could do something.
I mean, it would be performance art, but I do feel it might hinder sort of the connection sort of thing.
That just seemed very aggressive.
It did a little bit, but I've been picking up on that, so I didn't want to say anything. But
you gotta calm that down.
We can go outside and talk about it.
How about a headset on? I mean, because this would be the most restrictive space you'd be doing it in, because you've been on stage. You've been.
I'm normally standing up. Sure.
Yeah, I'd be interested to hear it.
Yeah, cool.
So let's let Frank jack that one up so we have a fourth perspective to do this, because sometimes we cut him a little bit.
Okay.
But I appreciate you doing this. So this is going to be Rory Breaker-Morant. Is that hyphenated?
Yep.
Okay. So I don't know if that affects the search, but Breaker. And that was that name was for breaking horses, I think I read or something.
The Breaker, yeah. That's his nickname. His real name was Harry.
Harry. Yeah. All right. Doing Bad, Sad, Mad from 2019?
2020.
2020.
Yeah, about April 2020. So okay. If it's not obvious through the poem, the context is basically, or the reasoning is, this is how I've been feeling. Like I'm interested, was very interested that you mentioned it first sounded a bit like complaining, which, sure, I could.
I said I interpreted it that way because I was angry with sort of wanting to not like it.
Oh, okay, right, yeah.
So that was all me. It wasn't whinging. I didn't hear you as whinging, but I was like, he's going to be a complainer here. And I thought, what a lame way for me to try and sit and.
I thought it was interesting. I mean, it's the first thing it could be, but it's a conversation with myself that as I developed it, as the poem developed, I was like, I'm sure I'm not the only person feeling this way.
Yeah.
And so the purpose of the poem, and I can actually say I achieved this purpose, like. When I perform it, it does hit the mark that I'm hoping that it hits. But the purpose was basically to say if you're feeling bad or sad or mad, it's okay. It's pretty fucking normal, and don't compound the problem by thinking that you shouldn't or beating yourself up about it or whatever, because you're one of probably literally millions of people feeling this way at the moment, and that's okay.
All right. Well, great. So whenever you're ready, if you want to catch your thoughts, I'm going to be right here listening, and we're filming.
It's all good. So, in those days, I used to go outside just to look around at the sunset city, and from a distance, everything, it looks a little prettier, and we waved to each other across the rooftops. And this could be the closest that we've ever been. And I can't see your shattered dreams. No, I can't see your shattered dreams, but I can see the broken scenes and what's now left lying in between. In trying times, we're inclined to regress and invite in coping mechanisms like comfort food. They're never leaving, but always leaving a mess. And I see the sand shift on the changing tides. The Ides of March are now revived, and it's time to replace our sense of entitlement with some steps towards social enlightenment. You see, it's the rocks at the bottom of that deep barrel that bring the shock of the forgotten demons you still need to battle, and those demons that you thought already defeated, now they return too. to scream your secrets, and they're like old enemies revisiting regrets I've neglected to respect. Or are these just the sick tricks of my mind? Are these just the sick tricks of my mind? Remembering that freedom feeling that we once had, because it's okay if you've been feeling bad or sad or like you're slowly going fucking mad, and it's okay to be craving human touch, and it's okay to say that this is not enough, and it's okay to be demotivated, and it's okay to feel like you've stagnated, and it's okay if you've been feeling frustrated, and it's okay to be creatively deflated. Because we've all been sitting sick of this isolation, suffocation, accusations of annihilation across every nation, illegal association, self-righteous indignation, but time proves it's just self-flagellation. And I've got hope, but not much optimism. Tomorrow's vision will be through a new type of prism, a new schism risen from uncertainty, and so I ask myself, who are you going to be when you are finally set free?
All right, right on. That's awesome. I really enjoyed that. That, ladies and gentlemen, Roman Anton Podcast, Rory Breaker-Morant here in Bangkok, Thailand. We're going to hit the streets. Thanks for coming in, Rory.
Thank you so much, man.
Right.
Thank you, guys. Cheers.
All right, we are here in the Klong Toey Wet Market in Bangkok, Thailand. Roman Anton Podcast Part 3 for Rory Breaker-Morant. Rory, how are you?
Good, thanks, mate. Yeah, this is, I think this is the first time I've been in this exact part of Thailand. I have come through this wet market once or twice before, but never on this actual street.
Yeah, well, it's a true wet market, and we sort of got moved back from the gate right behind us, but you said you've been in here at night before?
I accidentally took a wrong turn when I was driving home one night and ended up driving through the market. Yeah.
So I said I would bring up with you, you have another venture that you do that's not, there's two gatherings of poets and speakers.
Okay, yeah. So there's Bangkok Lyrical Lunacy, which is where I started my journey. Actually, Bangkok's longest running poetry, spoken word open mic. And I was working with them, those guys, for about 6 or 7 years, and then I started my own, which is called Kinetic Poetic, which happens.
Kinetic Poetic.
Yeah, Kinetic Poetic. I chose that name. Well, the nature of it is I invite some of the fantastic musicians that I know here in Bangkok to form an improv band, and they'll improvise music behind spoken word poetry. Nice. Based on maybe a little bit of a brief from the poet, like, this is a bit melancholy, this is angry, can I have a hip hop beat or whatever, yeah.
So you go out to venues around town, so you wouldn't come here to do it, but...
It might be a challenge here, yeah,
right,
just logistically.
Yeah, but you go out to venues, and our good friend Charlie McScallywag is someone you said plays with you, huh?
Charlie McScallywag has been in a couple of the bands a couple of the times. Also Ludo, the drummer Ludo has been part of the band too on a couple of occasions, and look, there's just the whole lineup is just gold. The last show we had a couple of weeks ago, 7 musicians all improvising very respectfully to each other, not one person trying to stand out, not one person trying to shred, just everybody really listening to each other, and actually listening to the poet was the thing that really stood out, and responding to the poet.
Do you speak at Kinetic Poetic, or do you?
Yeah, I mean, I'll always do at least one performance, but if we have enough people turning up, I'm there all the time. I want to give as many people an opportunity to do their thing with the music as I can, because you can turn up and do the same poem every time, but it'll always be different because of the different music that you're getting. So you can just go and journey through this world that you've created on all these different paths to get to the same destination.
Cool.
Yeah.
Do you think Kinetic Poetic performers come shop at the wet market?
No. If they are getting produce from here, it's probably coming via a third party.
All right. Understood.
Yeah.
Well, it is crazy what you can go in there and find every day and every night, right? I'm not saying it's crazy food. I'm just saying it's available and it's here, and it's a whole different life. And it's right on the edge of yours in my neighborhood, sort of intersecting, right? You're
That's
over
it.
that
I'm
way.
just down this way.
I'm
That's
over
it.
this way.
Yeah, exactly.
Where we just recorded at the Roman Anton Podcast is right behind us. But
Yep.
that's all we're going to do here. We're not going to really walk around. It's a little too much footage of people. Frank and I'll walk around Rory here and take some extra footage to put at the end of the video. But it was really excellent getting to meet you today, and I'm looking forward to seeing your upcoming performances.
Oh, thank you very much for inviting me. It was a pleasure. I really appreciate the opportunity to talk to you about this stuff.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you, Franco.
Thanks, Frank. Cheers.
My Damon News. My Damon News, don't confuse the one. You got the feeling that you're down here, sat on 11 on space. Put your hands in the air if you think it's great and say hey, say oh yeah, oh yeah, say hey, say oh yeah, oh yeah,
oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah. ตอนนี้เราอยู่กันเองอย่าไปเสียเพลงมันจะลอยลอยไกลรู้สึกยังไงก็แค่ให้ปล่อยไปรู้เสียงเพลงนี่ก็เสียงหัวใจสั่นสักตอนนี้อายุนานและยังคงอยู่เต็มสัตว์เราคุณโชว์เราคุณชอบยกมือเกินเราพูดจะแน่นอนอีก
Everybody say my Damon News. 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 It's art for art's sake. That's where you come down here today. Feeling something on the mic. Say hey, hey. Everybody in the house feeling good? I got my hands up because it's understood. But this art shit is a family. Hey,